Okay, hey everybody. We're missing the class today, but I wanted to go over a few things. So I'm going to put them in different segments. I hope you'll be able to catch them online, at least the audio or the video, and I'm going to send you the attachments. Hopefully that you have gotten the attachments, but I'll check with you later on that. Something I wanted to in class talk with you about is going back over the supply and demand curves and price ceilings and price floors and equilibrium and drawing, and just wanted to draw attention to a couple of things that are really interesting. But just as a quick review, let me illustrate here looking at a supply and demand schedule and drawing just in review. If you would, and I would encourage you to jot these down as we do in class, and do it your own way. Basically, I'm just gonna come up with some let's go with our example of donuts or anything, shoelaces. A box of donuts is usually good in the morning. The price is always on the left or the vertical axis, the quantities on the horizontal axis. And one thing to remember, not to get confused, is you can't draw a supply and demand curve unless you have the numbers. Now we know typically a supply curve goes like this and the demand curve goes like that, but you don't know those lines without the particular numbers along the line. Okay, so you first have to have the numbers from a schedule. And so let's just say at $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, and this is a box of donuts, I guess. And these are in numbers of dozens of donuts, for example. And so at $1 here, the quantity demanded is going to be really high out here. And at $2 it's also going to be really high, but it's not quite as high. Notice how it went from here to here based on the price going from $1 to $2. So the demand is going down as the price goes up at $3, at $4, at $5, at $6, basically. And so from here we have a way of drawing a line-to-line curve, and that would be the technical demand curve. Okay, this is a review. And then if we were to plot on the supply side, remember you put yourself in the suppliers or producers shoes, and at $1, for example, $1 for a box of donuts, they're not going to supply. The supply is going to be low. At $2 is low, at $3 is low, $4 is low, 5 is higher, and 6 and 7, at 8, as the price goes up, as the price can go up, they're going to supply more, and that's the supply curve. And we've done many of these. And then at this point where the quantity supplied equals quantity demand is the equilibrium. And this is pretty basic, but understand that you first have to have the numbers before you do the actual curve, which you guys have done. Okay, so at this point on this hypothetical, this is approximately where the equilibrium price is, and it's about $5 on this graph. And we talked about how sometimes the demand changes or the supply changes, and what causes that to happen. What would cause the demand curve to be out here what would cause that to happen. There's various reasons, and what would cause the supply curve to go up or down. Why would it go from here to here? Well, what would happen is the quantity demanded, specific quantity supply and quantity demanded numbers would be changing, and then you would have a new line, a new curve. Okay, and we talked about that. And so then if it did do this, then at the demand and S1 and D1, then we have a new equilibrium price would be here. And what causes a change from quantity supplied here at $3 and $4 and $5? It's a change in the price, and that would change the overall quantity supplied, and then that would change the quantity, the actual supply curve. Okay, that's a review, and I want to just show you something else to jot down, another way of looking at this. Well, it's really the same way of looking at it, but looking at, let me first draw draw the axis, and price, quantity, arbitrary numbers here, random. Okay, and this product here is going to be labor. In other words, jobs. And so the labor is the actual supply and demand. So when we're looking at this product of labor, is who supplies the labor and who demands the labor. The people who are supplying this labor are the people looking for jobs, the people that have a body and they want to work somewhere. So that's the suppliers, and the demand for labor is the employers. And let's just say this is $2, $4, $6, $8, $10, $12, and this is per hour. And then how many jobs are available at those prices would be the quantity. For example, at $2 an hour, the supply is going to be really high. Let's do the supply first. At at $12 an hour, the supply is high. At $10 an hour, it's a little lower but fairly high. At $8, and we're just doing a random illustration here, and it goes the same with donuts. The basic idea is that supply curve is going to be in this direction. The supply of labor is going to go higher at the $12. However, if we're looking at the demand for a $12 an hour job, the quantity is going to be low. Let's say the demand here in red at the bottom is, let's say this is in thousands of jobs. Thousands of jobs. In Birmingham, there's 1,000 people would like 1,000 people would work at $2.50 an hour here. 2,000 would work at $5. 3,000 would work at $6.50. 4,000 at $8 an hour. 5,000 at $10 an hour. Okay, but on the demand side, how many thousands of jobs are there at $12 an hour? Not as many. Low. At $10 an hour, it's low. And so something like this direction is the supply curve on this product. I'm sorry, the demand curve for this product of labor. Okay, so there is an equilibrium price somewhere. Now I just randomly did this, and on our graph here, it comes to about $8 is the equilibrium price for labor, $8 an hour. Okay, that goes along just like a normal example for donuts or whatever. It's got the supply and demand. Okay, so notice as the price per hour comes down, there's less a supply, but the demand goes up. Okay, that's normal. If you could pay someone $2 an hour, you would love to hire them, but there's not many people who would like to work for $2. Okay, there's a law in the United States that's a minimum wage law, and basically it sets a price floor. And so a price floor is setting an arbitrary number under which it's illegal to go. And so let's say the government set a price of $10 an hour price floor. What does that look like in our supply and demand curve here? And that is the demand, in other words, the jobs available at $10 comes to right here on our demand curve, which is 2,000. The supply, in other words, people who would like to work at $10 an hour on our graph is in between 4 and 5 here. Does that make sense? So in between here and here, that is a surplus of jobs. So that's an illustration of how a price floor creates a surplus. A surplus of labor means unemployment. That's why, this is written in Greek for unemployment, that's why a price floor eventually will lead to a surplus. In a price floor or a minimum wage law actually leads to unemployment, looking at it economically. Okay, another illustration that's something to have good notes on. Let me get another one here. And see if you guys can do the same. And we've got something, random numbers coming, and we know that price is here, quantity here always, and we know that the demand and supply curves, what direction they're going to look like. But this is going to be the product is going to be apartments. Whoops. Apartments in a big city, usually it has a lot of demand and a lot of supply. In New York, and we're talking about rent. Like, what is the rent? And it's $100, $200, possible $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 a month. And then the quantity would just, this is in thousands: 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 400, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 units, apartment units. And the basic idea is the same. The supply is going to be in this direction. I mean, the demand is in this direction. These colors are mixing me up. And the supply is in this format, and the equilibrium is in the center. And we could go through some specific numbers, and it would be basically like that. As the price goes up, the demand goes down. As the price goes up, the supply of apartments goes up. People who own apartments, who have apartments to rent out, they would like a higher price. And so as the price could go up, they would supply more of them. They would actually buy more apartments and then rent them out if the price could be rented out in that kind of profit. And vice versa, the demand for expensive apartments goes down and the demand for inexpensive apartments goes up. So down here at the 100 level, the demand is high. The price for expensive $700 apartments, it's low. It's at 1. Okay, so you understand that. But here's the deal: what happens in what the government comes in and sets a limit. They set a limit, but in this case, it's not a price ceiling. I mean, it's not a price floor, it's a price ceiling. Let's see if I can draw this. Whoops. Okay, I can't do it. And we continue this over. And they set a price ceiling here. In other words, you cannot go over this rental price. The government again is trying to help people supposedly by setting a price ceiling so that high prices will not be in the market. Everything will be low prices. And what that does is it draws a line across the graph, and we come to on the supply curve and on the demand curve where that intersects. And so the supply is around 3 and the demand is around 5, and so the difference between that is a shortage. So the demand is much higher than the supply, and that's a shortage. So a price ceiling creates a shortage, and it's illustrated every month, every day in places like New York and Moscow and places, big cities that are trying supposedly to help out the little guy, or the people that are just starting out, or the poor, and they put a price ceiling on rent, and it actually creates a shortage, which means so there's less of them, so it actually hurts. So those are two very good illustrations to have a working knowledge of what happens to a price ceiling and what happens when there's a price floor. Price floor creates a surplus, in this case of labor or unemployment, and a price ceiling creates a shortage.